On a Tuesday morning in March, Marcus Chen opened an email from a colleague 2 floors above him. It was a forwarded meeting summary, internal, routine, except that inside it, in 12 bullet points and a project title he recognized immediately, was every idea he had ever shared with his manager. In confidence. 6 months earlier, the presentation had gone well. Director Hale had been promoted 2 weeks after delivering it. Marcus had not been mentioned once. He closed the email. He made himself a coffee. And then he began to plan. This is what happened over the next 6 months. Marcus Chen was 31 years old and had been with Kellerman Group for 4 years. Product analyst. Not the loudest voice in any room, but reliably the one with the clearest thinking. His colleagues knew him as the person who stayed an extra hour. Not because anyone asked him to, but because he genuinely cared how the work turned out. He kept a notebook, handwritten, every idea he had, dated and detailed. It was a habit from university that he had never dropped. He was not ambitious in the way that makes people dangerous. He was ambitious in the way that makes people vulnerable. Director James Hale was 44, 14 years at the company. The kind of man who remembered your wife's name and your daughter's school play and used both facts at exactly the right moment. He ran the product strategy division with the relaxed authority of someone who had never once doubted that he belonged in the room. His door was always open. He had photographs on his desk. He remembered birthdays. Marcus had trusted him completely. Most people did. There was also Alice, 33, senior analyst, the person who sent Marcus the email he was never supposed to see. She had not realized what she was forwarding. She would later become the most important witness in everything that followed. At this point in the story, all 3 of them still worked at the same company. 2 of them were about to have a very different kind of year. The idea had come to Marcus in November of the previous year. He had been reviewing customer support data, specifically the pattern of complaints that came in during the first 30 days after a new client onboarded. The data told a consistent story. 73% of churned clients in year 1 had filed at least 1 support ticket in their first 3 weeks. No one had ever connected that pattern to the product structure. Marcus wrote 12 pages of notes. He built a prototype dashboard on his own time. He ran the numbers 3 different ways to make sure they held. Then he did what any junior analyst does when they believe they have found something important. He took it to his manager. The meeting with Director Hale lasted 40 minutes. Marcus walked him through every slide. He explained the retention model, the projected revenue impact. He had estimated $3.2 million in recoverable annual churn. And he showed him the prototype. Hale leaned back and said, "This is genuinely excellent, Marcus. Genuinely. Let me take a few days to think about how we position this upward. These things need the right framing to land well with the board." Marcus thanked him and walked back to his desk. He felt good about it. He trusted the process. What he did not know, and would not know for 3 weeks, was that Hale had already sent himself Marcus's slide deck from a forwarded email that same evening. He had also, that same week, scheduled time directly with the chief product officer, without mentioning Marcus at all. 3 weeks later, Kellerman Group held its Q1 strategy presentation. Marcus was not on the agenda. He was in the room as part of the general product team. 22 people in a conference room on the 14th floor. Director Hale stood up and began presenting. The title slide read, "Early Onboarding Intervention, a Data-Driven Retention Model." Marcus recognized it immediately. The slide that followed showed a chart he had built. The third slide used a phrase he had coined, "First 30-day friction points," a term he had invented and used in his written notes. The fourth slide showed a retention model. His retention model, restructured into slightly different formatting but numerically identical. He sat very still. He told himself there was an explanation, that Hale had built the same thing independently, that this was a coincidence. 12 specific data points, one invented phrase, and one proprietary model notwithstanding. He told himself that for exactly 4 days. Then Alice forwarded him the meeting summary email, not realizing what it contained. The document included an internal version history. The original file had been created by Marcus Chen on November 14th. The file had been modified by James Hale on November 17th. 3 days after their meeting, the file name had been changed. Marcus's name had been removed from every slide. His prototype screenshots had been redrawn in slightly different colors. But the version history did not lie. Version 1 still had Marcus's name embedded in the document properties. He did not go to HR. He did not confront Hale. He opened his handwritten notebook to the November entry. He photographed every page. He created a new encrypted folder. Marcus Chen sat with that knowledge for 6 days before doing anything. Then he began to build his case. Marcus was methodical. He started with what he already had, the handwritten notebook with the November 14th entry, the draft emails he had sent himself during the development process, each one time-stamped, each one containing elements of the original idea. A Slack message to a colleague from October, 3 weeks before the meeting with Hale, where he had described the core concept in a single paragraph. He printed everything. He organized it chronologically. He labeled each item. Then he went looking for what he did not already have. He submitted a formal internal data request, standard procedure used by analysts routinely, to access the version history of files in the product strategy shared drive. What came back was more than he expected. The presentation Hale had delivered to the board existed in 4 previous versions. Version 1, dated November 17th, was titled MC Deck Revised. MC Marcus Chen. He found a second file, an internal email draft, unsent, saved in the shared drive by mistake, in which Hale had asked his executive assistant to clean up Marcus's deck before Thursday. Thursday had been the day before the board presentation. He found a third piece of evidence, an internal calendar entry, Hale's calendar, visible to the product team as standard transparency practice, showing a 1-hour prep session with the CPO the evening before the board meeting. The meeting note, accessible to admins, read, "Final prep, early onboarding deck." And that was when Marcus understood. Not just what had been done, but how long, and by how many, and why. Hale had been planning this before Marcus even left the meeting. The promotion had been discussed in advance. The CPO had seen the deck and believed it was Hale's entirely. This was not opportunism. This was a decision. Marcus compiled everything into a single chronological document, 41 pages. Then he contacted an employment lawyer, privately, on a personal email account. He still showed up to work every day. He still said good morning to Director Hale. He waited. Marcus waited 6 months. Not because he was afraid, because he wanted to be certain, and because his lawyer had advised him on the exact right moment. The moment came when Hale submitted a second proposal to the board, this time for a product expansion that built directly to the original retention model. He was positioning himself for a second major win. A VP title was reportedly being discussed. Marcus requested a meeting. Standard, routine. He titled the calendar invite, Product Analytics Review, Q2 Retrospective. The meeting was in Hale's office. 20 minutes. A Thursday at 3 o'clock. Marcus arrived with a folder. Inside it, a printed copy of the original version history, the email draft requesting his deck be cleaned up, the chronological evidence document, and a letter from his employment lawyer. Hale greeted him warmly. He always did. Marcus sat down. He placed the folder on the desk. He did not open it yet. He said, "James, I need you to know that I have documentation, complete, dated, and independently verified, showing that the early onboarding retention model presented to the board in March originated entirely with me. I also need you to know that I have already shared this documentation with legal counsel and that the version history, the file naming, and the draft email are all preserved." Hale laughed, briefly, the way people do when they are uncertain. He said, "Marcus, I think you may be misremembering." Marcus opened the folder. He placed the version history document in the desk. He placed the draft email beside it. Hale looked at them. He said nothing. Marcus said, "I am not here to make a decision for you, but I am here to make sure you understand what the situation is." He stood up. He left the folder on the desk. He walked out. He had not raised his voice once. Hale contacted HR within 48 hours of that meeting. Not to report Marcus, to request early retirement consideration. He had apparently, after the meeting, reviewed his own situation and reached the same conclusion Marcus's lawyer had already reached. The company launched an internal IP review after HR received Hale's retirement request and the formal documentation Marcus had submitted through legal channels. The review took 11 weeks. The findings confirmed that the early onboarding retention model had originated with Marcus Chen. This was entered formally into company record. Director James Hale retired before the review concluded. His VP promotion was quietly withdrawn before it was ever announced. His 14-year tenure at Kellerman Group ended in a signed agreement that included a non-disparagement clause and a confidential financial settlement. He did not get a farewell party. The CPO personally sent Marcus a written acknowledgement. 3 months after the review concluded, Marcus was promoted, Product Strategy Lead, the role Hale had held. He inherited the office. He did not keep the photographs. The early onboarding retention model was formally credited to Marcus Chen in the company's internal product history. It had, by the time the review was complete, already contributed $1.9 million in recovered annual churn. Alice, who had forwarded the email without knowing what she was doing, attended Marcus's promotion celebration. He thanked her. She had no idea what she had started. The detail Hale had not anticipated, the thing he had not accounted for, was the handwritten notebook. He had never known it existed. He had seen the digital files, the slide deck, the prototype. He had not known that Marcus Chen wrote everything down by hand with a date. One notebook, November 14th. That was all it took. This story is about an idea being stolen, But more precisely, it is about the assumption that the person closest to your work is also the person safest with it. Marcus was not betrayed by a stranger. He was betrayed by the person who was supposed to open the door. And for 14 years, that person had built an entire career on being trusted. There is one question this story leaves, and it is not about Marcus. It is this: how many ideas, in how many companies, in how many meetings, have been quietly filed under someone else's name, by someone who simply understood that the person who had the idea was too trusting to fight for it. Marcus fought for it, not loudly, not quickly, but with a handwritten notebook and 6 months of patience. He made sure the trail led exactly where it was always going to lead. If stories like this matter to you, if you believe the truth always surfaces and that betrayal never goes unanswered, then Smoke and Betrayal is the channel you've been looking for. Subscribe. We have more stories to tell. Every betrayal leaves a trail. This was one of them.